53.
Oh.
Yeah. Still here? We're still doing that?
No.
We're going to let that go?
No.
All
I
right.
think we're going to let that go.
All right.
I think that the assumed point of being is we will be here
Until we're not.
until we're not. I don't know.
Keep you on the edge of your seats. Are we here? Are we not? We're not telling you anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have a topic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'm introducing the topic.
Go for it.
Anytime I introduce the topic, I feel like I'm like stumbling because I can never put it into like human words. It's coming out of elsewhere, and I'm just like, but okay. So the topic is interpreting self as light being, possibly is the kind of like the net summary, but that doesn't actually mean anything in human words.
If you had to boil it down to a sentence, that would be it.
Yeah, that would be it. But like from human perspective, this is something that I am being guided to once start doing myself. I think you have been practicing, but it's kind of evolving. And I think the rest of the humanity can either participate in this or will be participating in this by default. And so this will kind of like shine light on maybe like if you are participating in something and you're not sure what it is, maybe an explanation, or if you are actually like looking to a better way to actualize yourself.
That's a good way to put it.
Then this would give you like daily practice suggestions.
The tips and tricks episode.
The tips and tricks. Well, no, I mean they gave me the how to, and then you and I've been practicing
5 easy steps to being an enlightened being.
No.
Click through after the ads.
The what?
It's like there's a whole bunch. Then it's the life story. Then it's the ads.
Then it's the recipe.
And then it's the recipe.
Then it's the recipe. The actual recipe of through the life story, but then the actual recipe is buried somewhere and you can never find it.
Can't find it. The mobile Safari crashes for me before I get to it most of the time.
Right?
Yeah.
That's the thing. I know we're getting off topic already, but the amount of...
It wouldn't be our podcast if we stayed on the topic. Come on, let's be honest.
This is something I've noticed. The amount of ads that is present on websites now on mobile and how much they override the just the website's mobile experiences.
They're very intrusive.
Well, they're so intrusive, and they actually make it almost impossible to interact with the website. Most of the time, I'm sure the user still gets paid in my confusion of just even trying to make it through the website enough, but I just abandoned the website altogether.
Yeah, there's so many that I just give up on. The top quarters is a big video, depending on where you are on the screen, up to 100% of it is its own ad. There's often another, fixed thing at the bottom of the screen. So I've got the big phone, and there's
I have these little things like little rectangles from sides that pop in, even not the bottoms of the tops, just in the middles, right? Not even embedded on the side, just like pops. And so it's impossible for me to scroll, especially on my small phone. Anyway, but that to bring back to the topic, the amount of static and misinformation that exists out there that you have to purge through in order to even like see something clearly is getting
greater than ever.
And so it's getting
worse than ever.
Yeah, so it's getting more and more difficult to discern between truth and lies to some extent.
Yeah.
Especially if you surrender your sovereignty and have others rely on others to provide you with information. I say that as I am sitting providing information, but
it's okay. You can trust us.
I don't want that. I want everybody to discern for themselves intuitively with what is it that actually makes sense to you, right? And if something that we're saying does not resonate, or something that somebody else's spiritual teachings do not resonate, then that is the truth that you hold, right? That is your individualized truth. And even though that might be right for somebody else, it doesn't mean it's the right thing for you. Meaning, they might, I'm not saying there's a malicious intent in them spreading a lie. For some people, there might be, but if somebody is spiritual and their malicious intent is not to spread a lie, and they are spreading something, they're spreading something that is their truth that works for them.
Right. I mean, a simple example is, a lot of people eat meat. A lot of people don't eat meat.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And it's like, that's fine. There's all kinds of reasons to or to not to, right? There's, health reasons probably on both sides. There's, ethical reasons mostly on one side. There are a lot of reasons to, you know, is one way, right, wrong, good, bad. I don't know. I've got my choice. You've got your choice, and everybody's got their choice, and that's fine. That doesn't seem like something that society has to necessarily fight a war over.
Well, if anyone's ever fighting a war over meat or not meat, it's just because there's still something that is warring within them about something else,
Yeah,
and the meat is just the output, right? Because in the long run, right, that decision is just completely individual. Like that is
yeah,
probably one of the most individualized decisions you can make, other than your sexuality. That is probably the most individualized decision
yeah.
you can make.
Because that's like just part of your identity.
Yeah, your sexuality or your choice in your sexuality is your identity. So, right, like there's by zero default, no one else can possibly say anything because it's quite
Right,
literally you.
right.
And then meat or not eating meat is similar to some extent. In a sense, it's
But
very
yeah,
individualized, but you can have like a family understanding that maybe resonates,
yeah. I mean,
or a group.
it's stuff you're literally putting into your body, and if there's something that doesn't work for you, whether that's it doesn't work because you're lactose intolerant and you get ill if you have milk or dairy,
Hmm.
or the density of meat just doesn't resonate with you, and you would probably get ill if you ate that. Is it the same type of illness? Maybe not necessarily, but whatever. It's your choice. Tomorrow you might decide differently, but that's what it is.
Yeah, yeah, no, but to that extent, you brought up meat, but the reason why I stopped eating meat, it was because of the density. And connecting to your light being, I will just say it, at least for me, back then was more difficult if I held on lots of outside density, even besides my own, right? Because your own stuck emotional pain and body is already a density that you're working on trying to
We've all got
release.
plenty of that.
Right. But then bringing in additional densities from the outside source, such as the density of, beef or pork or chicken or fish, I just found it unnecessary. Like I almost saw it as like, okay, if my goal is to release my own density, my own trauma, my own pain, um, to some extent, that process includes not bringing on any additional densities, that are not mine or that I choose not to resonate with. Thus, it's almost like when you make a choice in not resonating with specific set of densities, such as density of meat, however you want to interpret it. I'm not going to get into political nuances of what that means or like the ethics or anything like that. Let's just say everything holds density. Like carrot has a density, energetic potential, or like the lightness of its being. And then chicken has same thing, right?
Yeah.
And so when you tune in intuitively, just like tune in into an object, you can at some point feel like, oh, well, here's kind of like the resonance of a carrot, and here's the resonance of the chicken. And then you can go, well, do I want to resonate with the essence of the chicken? Not like as a friend, like as a consumption, right?
Right. Maybe complicated by, there's one thing resonating with a cow. Here he is, alive and well. There's another thing if this is a free range, lovely farm style cow. There's another thing if it's some sort of factory farmed thing. I think that densifies it even
Yeah,
more.
yeah, yeah. That's what I said, like political or ethical. But yes, so depending on the upbringing of any one animal, the density of it, right? The of what you putting into your body, including the all the medicine and all the hormones and all the steroids that they inject into the animal to have it to grow faster and bigger and all that. It comes in as a density. It vibrates, right? You don't even have to define like, okay, why is it so dense,
Right.
or why it doesn't even feel right. And usually it's because with mistreatment or whatever.
Yeah.
So it doesn't even matter if you believe in it or not. The only thing that you actually kind of need to know is like, okay, well, what is my goal in life? Is my goal in life to what to be in resonance with what, right? And it's kind of like, choose your adventure type of a situation. You're choosing your way of being. Like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm okay resonating with beef that is mass produced. But then just realize that that choice is a choice into choose your adventure. And so adventure will propagate from that frequency, right? Like
Right.
the resonance of that density will be in like mindset with you. And then your life will kind of propagate, that, I mean, you are what you eat kind of a way
Yeah.
of being.
And not just food, but like all aspects of your life. Where you work, what you do,
What you say.
if you
Yeah.
work for some pretty sketchy companies that do some pretty sketchy stuff, and it's like, you could probably make a lot of money, but can you sleep at night type of a thing.
Mhm.
That there's a density there. If you're all into the I don't know what the news or the Love Island or whatever, that's not saying that this is necessarily good or bad, but everything has some sort of density or frequency.
Yeah.
And the more you consume it, whether physically putting it in your mouth or doing this, for a, a job or consuming this media or, being around these people or those people or whatever, that's, you're bringing that into your life.
Yeah. By bringing it into your life, you're allowing then resonance of you with
Yes,
that
yes, yes,
frequency.
yes.
And then therefore you become the frequency you consume.
Yep.
Right. Especially since we are so guilty, including me, of surrendering our sovereignty into
Yeah.
other densities
It
or other
right.
frequencies.
And it's tricky because it's not just that it's like, okay, cancer. That's not great. Nobody likes cancer. And so, maybe there's a march for again, fighting cancer, right? How could that be bad? Right? But it depends on the energy of the people of the march and the organizers and everything. And it depends on what you bring to it. But you could go to this march as, fuck cancer. Cancer's the enemy. We have to destroy it type of a thing. Or you could go to the march with this, we need to find, a way to, live healthy type of a mindset. And those are on the surface, it's people walking down the street holding banners, but energetically that's very different.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's, but sometimes the tenacity for survival with us, like with me, I can relate to this, holds this like, fuck it, I'm going to fight it and win this. Right.
Yeah.
Because it's coming out of fear
Mm-hmm.
of what it means when you don't.
Yeah. I mean,
Right. So
the things that people protest about are usually scary things.
yeah, but if you're protesting, right? Again, I think we have brought this up. You're actually trying to offset the overwhelm of fear that you feel when this thing has a freedom to go, right? Like if it's a protest against human trafficking, right? Like you're afraid of what if the world is just full of human traffickers
Right.
and then so
What if
I'm not saying the world should be full of human
what if my
traffickers.
daughter gets abducted?
Yeah,
What if
right. And so I'm not saying that is something that shouldn't be stopped. It should, but at the same time, the energy that individual brings into it is reflection of their unprocessed density, of their unprocessed trauma or pain, usually out of fear or scarcity or unsafety, right? So as you start to let go of all of these densities and all of these fears, you're able to start to raise your vibration higher and higher and higher, right? And so, like sooner or later, the things that just do not work will start to fall away. They will just kind of like start to work themselves out of your side of being. And to some extent, that could be like, oh yeah, look, this no longer resonates with me. But if you still hold even like a small fear of density around it, or around aspects of fear or aspects of abandonment, aspects of loss or change, right? That within itself will spike up more trauma and more fear that will come up that you will need to release, and recognition that, oh, look, why am I trying to hold on to something that is actively trying to walk away, that I no longer resonate with? Because you're right, you have upgraded your density. And you're now, attempting to function and to flow on the different wavelength of self. But as all these things go away, sometimes we hold on to them because they're familiar. But that's just an indication that we are still living in fear to some extent about change.
Yeah.
Unsafety in change, fear in change. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that could lead right into the light being, which is kind of the opposite of that.
Yeah. And so the instructional manual that I've been given is the approach in which we take. And I will say this for sure applied to me in my unbeknownst journey of self. So when you start to become a spiritually aware being, and the world of spirituality has this thing of raising your vibration, raising your energy, right? And there's this whole thing of like, oh, lightening your being and being a light being. And nobody really knows what it means, but everybody just knows that they need to become a light being or release the density in order to be
Right.
lighter, right?
It's like this, right? Which is right. I mean, that was my struggle, is that, people say that, you would say that. I'm like, what does that even mean?
Yeah. So just to explain, so to begin with, our approach is we know our baseline, right? We know that, okay, well, we have all these trapped fears and we have all these trapped energies. And, the goal, if to find peace, right? Like in Buddhism, you try to find peace, is through release of attachments, right? And some of those attachments, majority of those attachments that actually hold density are just fears and traumas, right? So and releasing them is basically becoming aware of their existence to begin with. And then after that, I'm just letting them flow, right? That's our process. And then after you flow for so long, with you and I, of where we stand right now, and correct me if I'm wrong, but for sure with me, the instructions that I've been given is, okay, now that you have reached this somewhat of a clearing, like past the initial level of de-densification, let's have that word. Now you can start to change your aspects of interpretation altogether. And that is, instead of looking yourself as a being right here who's trying to raise themselves up by removing the density, you can now tune in into your being from the highest point of self, the highest point of your being. And I hope people can do that, or maybe we can talk about how you would do that. And start interpreting self from that point all the time.
Yeah. To me, it's similar in a way to when I was talking about, like, I used to think that enlightenment was this thing out there that I had to, climb up to. And instead, it's like, no, that's the default state that has been almost covered up. And in this sense, that honestly, maybe we're talking about the same thing. now that I think about it, that quote enlightenment or self-actualization or whatever is this maybe the same thing as being a light being or being,
It is the
the
same
truth.
thing.
Yeah. So there you go. It is. Yeah. It's
It just in this episode
yeah.
we're talking about how to approach it from this
Yeah.
flip standpoint
Yeah.
of belief.
Instead of I'm down here and I need to climb my way up there by doing this and doing that and raising vibration, which are all things that could work.
No, they do work. Because to begin with, the only thing you
Yeah.
know is down here, and you need to uncover
Yeah.
these layers that keep you down.
But instead to realize that on some level, on some very real level, you are already there, and view the world from that perspective.
Yeah, but your dump truck theory is that like here's enlightenment, or here's yourself that is actually perfect and there's nothing wrong. And then everything that you have done, that you have designed as a definition of self, is basically a pit poop.
Yeah.
And then there's dump trucks that are being filled, and the goal is to stop the dump trucks and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah. To that standpoint, if you raise your vibrational frequency enough, you almost do like this bloop into the space
Yeah.
where you no longer have to battle the dump trucks.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So after enough of this clearing and enough of this densification, where you remove the trauma, and in our case, we do not associate with densities, lower densities, let's say, or more densified forms of being that we do not want to bring into our life.
Yeah.
After you shed yourself off of those things, you kind of like reach this nice coasting ground of where you're like, oh wow, this is very peaceful. It's a very peaceful and calm ways of being. You're not being poked as much. You're not being stirred. I'm not saying there's zero triggers, but even if the triggers happen, you're kind of like, oh, interesting. Look, here's a trigger, and I'm now having to work through and react to it. And you concentrate more on clearing out the energy than you're actually on being lost in the trigger.
Right. Part of me thinks a lot of that is just some sort of escapist thing, because we really have, you and me in particular, have kind of organized our lives around. we don't really see anyone we don't like, and we don't really do anything we don't like, and most people have to go to a place of education or of work, and they have to see Bill at the office, and they have and it's not that our life is absent of triggers. 100%. That is right. There are plenty, but I don't even know where I'm going with this.
I would correct you. If your life, everything in your life is your choice. So I don't think it's escapism. I think it is a very clear line of boundaries that we have established that we have not had all through our life. That's the way I see it.
I think that is a very,
in the
very
past,
good way to look at
my
it.
boundary was so not a boundary that I would participate in all these things out of whatever reason, either obligation or fear. And I would be okay with certain jobs, and I would be okay with certain projects. And yeah, like to some extent, it feels hermit-like in a way, or very selective, or very secluded. Not to, because in comparison, everything we have ever experienced have been this life without boundaries of personal sovereignty. And I value my personal sovereignty like a lot now. And two, I realize that usually one of my biggest faults is giving up that sovereignty. Intentionally or obviously subconsciously a lot of the time, to a concept, to another human, to employees, to organizations that I participate with, to people that I meet, right? And so yeah, like part of that process is just being selective on my desire for what is it that I resonate with. And to some extent, yeah, it does include seclusion because you no longer want to be in resonance with the bullshit.
Yeah. As you say that, I'm like, on the surface, this probably doesn't look our life doesn't look a whole lot different than it was when we first started, working out of the home full time. But it feels different. It isn't like back then, for me at least, I think it was largely an escapist thing because I'm like, here's all the things that I don't want to do. I can lock myself in the home and everything's great. COVID came along. I'm like, that's fine with me because what am I got to know where I want to go anyway. I want to go to the park. I can still go to the park. Problem solved. I'm cozy. We've got our doomsday prepper toilet paper, so we're good. But it is different now. It is, it's not about hiding from the world when it totally used to be for me. And now it's like, oh, why would I see? I'm gonna word it, and it sounds like it's the same thing, but it feels different. It's like now it used to be I knew what I didn't want, so I'm gonna cut that out. And now it's I know what I do want, so I'm just doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And again, on the surface, that probably looks just about the same.
Yeah.
But there's a different
Intent.
It's different in a way that's really hard for me to articulate.
Well, yeah. I mean, in the past, to begin with, right? When you were, correct me, but I'm not saying this in an accusatory way, but you were in a sense running away from all the things that you made you feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you didn't want to, you don't have to want to deal with them.
Yes, I didn't.
So you're
yeah.
actively trying to
If
avoid dealing with
if
things.
I can just hermit myself up in the house, I don't have to deal with all these things in the real world.
Yes.
And isn't that nice? Because now I'm not triggered, and now I'm not, triggered.
Yeah, but ideally, forward, it's not that you're trying to escape from having to deal with them. You would deal with them regardless.
Yeah.
But the way you would deal with them would come from the space of serenity and being, and just like knowing your sovereignty. And this is your expression of self through your sovereign decision.
Yeah.
And so therefore, if you were in the same position as you were 15 years ago before you quit your job, right? You would go, oh yeah, no, right. If this is the energy of you now, but you're in the past, you would go, no, I would have the uncomfortable conversations, and I would tell people what I think, and I would stay strong on my boundaries.
Yeah.
And I would declare, this is who I am, and this is what I stand for, and this is bullshit.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that's the difference, is you would have a voice because you would know what your boundary is. I hope.
I hope so too. I think I would.
To that extent, I would say, but a lot of times when you say, do you actually bring a test of it into the universes? If that opportunity comes up, then you would be approaching that declaration not out of fear of running away to make sure that this never comes up and creating the scenario where you're trying to avoid it. But if it comes up, you're a different being than you were, let's say, 5 years ago, for sure.
Yeah.
To where the conversation you'll be having would not come out of fear, and it would not come out of scarcity. And it would not come out of this idea, oh, I don't have a voice, so I don't even have a right to say this.
Right.
You would say it from the point of, here's who I am. Here's what my definition is. Here's what's good with me. Here's what's not good with me. I know exactly who I am.
Right.
Then thus.
A very Buddhist middle path type of a thing. Like my tendency, if I'm not over here and, I'm afraid to do it, and then I'm over here and I've got to do it so I can prove to myself that I'm going to do it. Prove to myself that I'm capable,
almost over, but
tilt the scale,
you're still
tilt
afraid.
the scales.
You're still
Yeah,
afraid.
I'm still, yeah.
Yeah, if you're doing things out of fear, whether voicing things or not voicing things, it doesn't matter what the outcome is. You're still doing them out of fear.
Yeah, but there's that.
Well, the middle path really is just knowing yourself. Like it's almost like once you know who you are, this has kind of been the most magical thing for me is the boundaries naturally come.
Right, and
The
there's
boundaries kind of naturally establish themselves going, oh yeah, well, it just doesn't resonate with me. This density or this flow doesn't resonate with me. And then thus, you automatically go, okay, well, here, you're not building boundaries as walls and protection against people. What the boundary is I just don't engage in things that don't resonate with me.
right.
And so then things, usually with how the universe works is those things just won't even come your way. Right? When you stop resonating with things, they just kind of fall away.
It seems like that is true. That there are fewer of those things lately.
And when they do come, you like approach that not from the escapism standpoint of I don't
Right.
want to deal with
It's
it,
just
or I don't,
another thing to
or I'm
do.
determined that I don't know how to deal with it, or look, here's another person who's taking advantage of me. You're like, well, no, this is my boundary, and this person is doing this, and this is stepping over my boundary, and I need to communicate that. That's it. There's not right. Like if it's just a matter of that, there's no charge. There's no fight. There's no
Yeah,
anything.
yeah.
It's just here's my sovereign space, and you're crossing that sovereign space. Not because I'm afraid, not because I'm scared. This is just me. And so that knowing of self, of knowing thyself, once you release the densities of fear and scarcity and whatever those are, and things are kind of in that peaceful state of being more so than before. I'm not saying there's no triggers. I'm not saying there's nothing. Then you can kind of almost like have this like revolutionary moment of pause. Like that's how I would word it, to where you can go, oh wow, that's interesting. Like my vibration of frequency is just vastly different than it was, I don't know, let's say 5 years ago or 6 months ago. In my case, I'm noticing the difference within like 2 or 3 months ago. And so from that space, then you go, oh wait, now I can reach this whole other way of being that resonates with me even more, which is this light being, the lighted being, vibrational frequency that I can touch that is actually my truth. Like you're able to just connect to this higher vibrational place that is even more the essence of you. And in that space, this is what I notice is there's no stories.
Stories. That's an interesting way to word it.
There's no anything. There's just
You're not
isness.
lugging around all this history.
Yeah. There's no dump trucks coming.
Right.
There's nothing to shovel out. There's just being. And the being has no stories. And by stories, I mean like all the definitions and of the worries and all the everything that we bring in that is like our rudimentary, subconscious running
Yeah.
that is there. And so the guidance that I get is spend more time in that space.
Right.
Start anchoring into that space more and more and more each day.
Right. And it's one, that's, easy for me to do in meditation, right? That's probably the easiest way for anybody to touch on that and feel what that feels like. But, and I've read this before, not related to that, but I guess, well, maybe it is related to that. It's like, you know how when you meditate, you get really, really calm and really peaceful and you feel great. And then, you get out of your, stand up out of your seat and go about your day. And then you're all grumpy again. It's like, why can't you carry that with you all day? What is it that only happens during meditation that when you leave that space,
Mhm.
using the word space in many ways there, you're leaving that mental state as well.
Mhm.
Mental, emotional, spiritual, psychological, all of the above state as well. And whatever I read, I've read this in several different places, and everyone had the same thesis, which is basically, yeah, you can carry that with you all day. You don't have to be in a delta, theta meditative state in order to be at peace. You can be, arguing in the courtroom and be at peace. That's probably a stressful thing to do.
Yeah.
That would be a stressful thing for me if I were to go into a courtroom and have to argue. Probably for most people. I'm just picking that as an example. But right, and if you can do it there, you can do it. Walking to the bathroom. You can do it driving to work. You can do it shopping for groceries.
Yeah, that is
Because
a way you can start train your body to be in that space all the time. But when I'm being guided to basically ascend into that space, and not through a form of meditation, just in general, we'll go in that space, and you kind of anchor in. Then let's say, the next 10 minutes or 5 minutes or heck, even 30 seconds, you're spending more time in that space than you would otherwise. And so through this casual entrainment of self,
yeah,
you start to just bring in more and more of that vibration in.
yeah,
The more you remember this throughout the day.
right. I mean, it's like any other, I don't know what to call them, subtle habits, like having good posture or breathing properly. It's like just if you're just not thinking about it, you're gonna go back to slunched over and whatever. But if you just go, wait a minute, or I have a every 10 minutes a little notification pops up on my computer that says posture, and I'm like, oh, that's right.
Do you
Sometimes I do it,
do you
sometimes I
follow?
don't. But I correct my posture more because of that than I would otherwise. Um, I'm sure there are all kinds of tips and tricks to inject reminders into your life if that works for you. But anything you can do to be in it more.
I've noticed, you know, we meditate most of the mornings, and it used to be to where, like, if the room, like, to begin with, my idea of meditation was like, oh, it's peace and quiet, it's serenity. And there you go. We started meditation at some point at the Buddhist center, right? Kind of like one of our first introductions before COVID to just like practice, ongoing practice, right? And anytime there was some sort of clanking noise or somebody was breathing not right, I noticed I would get irritated because it would take me out of meditation. That, of course, this was like 5 or 6 years ago, right? Um, right, 5 years, whatever, pre-COVID. So who knows?
Probably 2019.
Um, and then later, I've noticed it transitioned itself into, it doesn't actually matter at all what the background noises are. I can just be in that space, period. I'm not saying the space is always, like the angels singing, but it doesn't actually matter what the surrounding holds. I
Hmm.
can just sit there and be calm. And then lately, our cat, Lyra, has been coming into my lap, and basically she kind of does this thing where she forces you to rub her. Like, she needs to be petted if she's in my lap. She won't just lay still. Because I think she has taken on the meditation as her, like, oh, this is when mommy pets me type of situation. And so what I've noticed is the what I have been doing is has been like entraining me into this idea that I'm in meditative state, right, by my arms, and there's a cognitive process of some sense where I'm still petting the cat and trying to accommodate as she's fidgeting and moving all around me.
She's
And
so persnickety.
yeah, she's very persnickety. And it's not like she's laying there, you have to pet her. She's like
Standing and
standing
turning
and
and walking
turning.
and
Yeah, there's a lot of movement. And so staying in the meditative state while trying to accommodate, her persnickety desires of petting, right? And I thought, oh, it's like training me for a whole other way of being calm, meditatively calm,
yeah.
in a very active environment of stroking the cat, right? And I thought you know, I purposely allow her to do it because I feel like, this is intentional, higher guidance from the universe of trying to bring in that state, that lighted being vibrational frequency that I'm able to reach a meditative state just as I'm moving. And, to some extent for me, it's a little bit easier because I channel. And when I channel, I'm kind of bringing something in from elsewhere that otherwise I wouldn't, that I'm typing, right? Typing is for the most part, three-dimensional action, right? And there's some thought, right? Like thought comes in. I obviously don't process what I type, but I like draw opinions about it. Like, oh, look at that. Oh, look at this. Um, but it is coming through, and I'm in that zonked out state, kind of, sort of. So the training that I'm getting is kind of like functioning in a much higher vibrational frequency while at the same time functioning in the three-dimensional space.
Yeah. I'm in a similar situation. The room had to be quiet. The room had to be dark. I would adjust my chair. I still sometimes do, but I would adjust my chair so that, because where I sit, the window and don't, the curtain doesn't completely close it. And so it's just a bright light into the left side of my face. But we've done it with windows open lately, and it's, it's not a, it doesn't matter as much anymore. It's, if it's dark, that's nice. I used to have white noise in my
Yeah,
ears
but
to
it's
do
like,
it.
trying to reach peace through escapism.
Right.
But that's the thing is, right, like when I thought, okay, when I was when we were in the Buddhist center and we were meditating and there was some sort of like I got used to the air conditioning noise, but sometimes there's like clanking in the kitchen, right? It would almost like irritate me because I'm like, oh, look, this is disturbing the peace. But really it's the trigger of like, look, your peace is disturbed by clanking of somebody just getting a cup of tea. And
The
that was on me, but at the time I didn't see it. 5 years ago, I was like, ugh.
uh, this is maybe slightly related. Before we had kids, if there's a baby screaming on an airplane, uh, I did not like that. It would really bother me. Be like, oh gosh, someone shut that kid up. After kids, it's like, yeah, that mom or dad doesn't want that baby screaming even more than you don't want that baby screaming. Um, and I don't know. There have been times that there's a baby crying or screaming 1, 2, 3 seats over, behind, whatever. I don't even notice it anymore. It's like, it's just completely, I don't know, tuned out or something. Uh, but a lot of the quote distractions just seem to be tuned out. Like, it is sometimes hard to read if there is talking on television.
Well,
But
our television talk on television is our daughter watching some crazy YouTube videos where they're yelling. They're so
yeah,
loud. There's a lot of intensity
yeah. I
behind
mean,
it.
as you know, I can read with music just fine, but I can't read with like word music.
YouTubers yelling.
Yeah, with yeah. If it's just like
Yeah, but like
instrument,
if it was just a regular news broadcast, I mean, as terrible as news broadcasts are, but if it was just regular broadcast, or
it probably
or
wouldn't. It
even
probably
like,
wouldn't be as bad. If it's just instrumental music, oh, that's fine. That
no,
doesn't.
I'm just talking about even people talking, but at a normal volume. I think it's because it's young YouTubers yelling, and
Yeah,
there's like drama and it's that like anxious energy.
it is. Yeah, it is very anxious energy. That's hard to. I might be able to meditate to that, but I couldn't. I can't read to that.
Yeah. No, that's another thing that, that's I'm wondering is like there's a lot of, besides news, like, Annabelle, who's 10, is watching a lot of the fake, it's all fake because YouTubers design some sort of fake story and then, there's like some sort of drama that they have to overcome. But their energy is very frantic in order to get you
Yeah,
captured in and sucked in.
yeah. I know.
And that's just like it's difficult to be around that.
Yeah,
Even as a bystander in the living room, where the TV is playing.
yeah.
It just doesn't
That's.
feel nice.
I didn't realize how frantic it was until recently when we were talking about it. It's like, oh my gosh, these people, and we just stood off like they're just like, oh my god, the bad guys are coming! Ah, and it's just too much.
Mhm. Yeah. But to some extent, YouTubers use that as a tool
Sure,
to capture
I'm sure it
attention, especially with children.
works and all, but it's not. It doesn't feel wholesome or healthy. It
Yeah.
feels and yes,
Well,
obviously
it
it's
feels
fake. Obviously it's
income
artificial.
based.
Yes,
It feels like this is what we feel like this is the recipe that gets us the most views and most prolonged views.
right.
This negativity and tension and like a fake
Peril,
peril. Yeah.
right? I mean, nobody really thinks that the hackers are going to come in and kill people for real. That's right. I don't know. Maybe you do if you're 3 years old watching it. Maybe you do. But
Well, yeah, but for a 3-year-old concept, that's enough to like get you.
that's
But to some extent, I was thinking, is that healthy for the children to be experiencing that much fake peril, that fake anxiety?
I
I
don't
mean, they
know.
already have enough anxiety as is in real life to deal with. Do they need fake anxiety?
Right. I mean, but like every pick a movie or TV show that doesn't have some sort of peril that isn't a document. Even the documentaries. We're watching this. Was it One Strange Rock about like the history of planet Earth, hosted by Will Smith, and for a lot of them, it's designed with very obvious commercial breaks.
Yeah. Well, I think it's an old show.
Maybe pre-slap.
Oh, pre-slap.
Pre-slap.
Oh, pre-slap.
Um,
I don't know if it was pre-slap or not.
but the for a lot of them, right before the commercial break, Will Smith, the host, will inject this fear. It's like but Earth hasn't always been peaceful. Dun dun dun.
There's
And
no dun dun dun.
there's no dun dun dun. Or but what if another asteroid comes today? There's all these.
To get you to stay through the commercial break.
Yeah,
But like after the commercial break, there's actually they don't even go back to
they
the
don't
same
really
topic.
follow it up. Yeah, I've
So
noticed that
it's just-
too.
Yeah, I don't know
So-
whoever wrote that. That seemed silly. But it was also maybe a little dated. I mean, the information is not dated, but like just there's a style of production.
Yeah, I mean the production quality is of course top notch.
Yeah.
National Geographic, Disney budget, of course, but that I don't like that part.
Oh, I think it's just I think whoever wrote
It seemed like, oh, we got to hook them right at the commercial break, because it's like the last words before the commercial break. We got to hook them so that they stay. And how do we hook them? We hook them because everything's about to go wrong. Cut to commercial.
Well, everything's about to go wrong. I mean,
and then
they're
they come
talking
back
about
and
4.5 billion years of Earth's history. I think we know how things go.
Turns out we make it.
Turns out we're still here, as it were.
Still here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But we get bombarded by so much
Drama, negativity.
yeah, just like even more unnecessary density, even more unnecessary fear than just like even our truth. I feel like if we just pause and go, okay, there's a set of things that I have to deal with from my standpoint. Like throughout my day, I have to draw awareness to how am I reacting to this and why? Do I
Right.
want to be associated with this frequency? Is this in resonance with me? Am I afraid to say no here? Am I afraid of not having an income there? Am I doing this job for the wrong reason? Or am
Right.
I agreeing to this event for the wrong reason?
Oh.
There's so many things that we're already blind to on our own.
That are just even necessary parts of our modern life.
Yeah, just
Right.
just the choices we're making and why we're making them. There's just that fills up the day.
Do we need to go?
And seek other people's
Yes.
drama and participate in other people's fake stories. So I am kind of flabbergasted by the extent of like, wow, I can barely do it, and I know how easy we have it because we kind of have built this boundary to where I'm very particular of who comes into my life. I'm very particular of how much time I spend analyzing my reaction, how much awareness I bring. There is already so much work that to allow somebody else to freely just willy-nilly come into my life and add on their shit is like, wow, that's how do you even have time for yourself, much less somebody else?
Like turning on the news or
watching,
Love Island.
Love Island, right? Or whatever, right? Like that is just unnecessary, just more unnecessary things on top of the difficult situation of actualizing yourself.
I mean, I can understand that there may be an entertainment value in some of that, I guess. But I don't know. It doesn't seem like that would be, I don't know, maybe it's just a personal choice. That doesn't
No,
the
but that's what it
trade-off on
is.
that is not worth it for me.
Once you make the choices that resonate with you, right? In our case, I hate to say it, maybe we're very picky about what is it that we associate with and how, I evaluate things against that resonance. Like, okay, is this resonating with my sovereignty? If I had to declare sovereignty, is this in resonance in any way? And if it's not, and it's a very secluded way of being, I will admit to that. But if it's not, you're able to have more of your own time to figure your own shit out. So then your frequency automatically goes up. And then once you establish yourself there, honestly, you can hold more space for everybody else who's still struggling.
We're watching Trying on Apple TV, and at one point, these two, I don't know, adults, they go out to a party one night, and then like the next night, they're one of them gets a text inviting them to another party, and it was clear that they overexhausted themselves on the first night, and they are not the party all night type of people, and so they get a text like, "Oh, we're going to the club at we'll be there at midnight. Can you come?" Or whatever.
No, like right now.
Oh yeah,
right now.
And they're like, it's the they're not married yet, but it's the the man and the woman. They're like, "Oh yeah. Do you want to go?" And they're like, "Yeah, sure. Do you want to go?" Yeah, sure. And it's clear that neither of them want to go, but there's some combination of like, well, I'll go if you want to go because I want you to be happy, and you'll go if I want to go because you want me to be happy. But we're not going to be honest enough to say that we don't want to go because that we're afraid that will upset the other our partner or something.
I think it was more than that. I think deep down they wanted to feel younger.
That too.
And then
that too, because young people go partying all night.
Yeah, young, and then like, oh, well, I don't want to be the old fogey that chooses to sit on the couch as opposed to goes night clubbing.
Right.
But they didn't want to disappoint their partner in that choice being their own sovereign decision.
Yeah.
Right. In that case, she didn't want to say, "Oh, it turns out this is not me," because if she were to say that, then she felt like he's going to reject her because if this is him and he wants to be young and hip and party all night and she doesn't, then she doesn't belong with him. They're not in resonance with each other.
Right.
So the disappointment was not necessarily, I don't want to disappoint my partner. I don't want to disappoint my partner because I think this is the truth that they're aligned with. And I'm no longer aligned with the truth. So the deeper conversation there is like, she's betraying her sovereignty for someone else, and he's betraying for his sovereignty for someone else, each other in this case. And there's no honesty of like, wait, do I hold my sovereignty and do I have an honest conversation with my partner or what that means?
Yeah. In the end, it was the text was sent to the wrong person, and they're like, "Oh, thank God we don't have to go."
No, they're like, "Oh, you didn't want to go either." "Oh, yeah, I didn't want to go. I didn't want to go." Now it was very superficial in the show, but the depth of it is not like you doing something because you're afraid. In this case, it is jeopardizing of your sovereign state of being. In this case, admitting to self that you're an old fogey and you want to sit on the couch instead of going party.
Right. We probably watched and finished so many shows that neither of us really wanted to watch or finish. And now we're like
what?
I don't know, but we've gotten several episodes into stuff. Citadel. We watched all but one episode of Citadel. There you go.
Well, it was so hyped up that I was hoping it was going to get better and better and better, and it never did.
And now we're like, we're going to give this 5, maybe 10 minutes, and then if either one of us are like, yeah, we'll just abort it.
Yeah.
It's not. So that's like it is a superficial, trivial thing. But as far as not bringing stuff into your life that you don't resonate with, don't feel bad if you don't finish a movie or TV show you started 10 minutes ago. Don't feel bad if you don't finish a book and it's just not working for you. I used to have this like, there's like this guilt. Oh, I started a book. I need to finish it.
Well, in our case, we buy the book.
I owe it. I mean, buy it. Don't buy it.
Oh,
Print it from the
really?
library. It doesn't matter. It came for free. It was gifted to you. Whatever. It's like, oh well, I owe it to the book, author, universe. I don't know. There's no real reasoning behind it. It's
Yeah, I can relate to that.
I felt like, especially if I'd started it, I really need to finish it.
Yeah.
Now it's like that's fine. I can
Abandon.
I can abandon it. Maybe I'll come back later. Maybe I won't. Depends on what it is. But
Yeah.
I have an awful lot of half finished books because it was no longer in resonance with me right then.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that I'm halfway through Autobiography of a Yogi. I never finished it. I would like to finish it. It was just whatever it wasn't working for me right then. And I don't feel bad about that. I would have felt bad about that years ago.
Yeah. No, that was an interesting book.
I feel like I kind of pulled it off topic a little bit with that.
No, the topic in this case is, I think, using very, very harsh discretion to determine what is it that you resonate with. And then if you are being pushed into something, or you yourself or somebody choosing to go into something that deep down you're not in resonance with, then ask why. Because usually there's a pain body that is pulling you some direction, right? The idea of abandoning me. Oh, I'm the type of person that doesn't follow through with things, so that makes me bad. I'm the type of person that doesn't finish books. That makes me bad, right? Well, it doesn't actually matter if you finish a book or finish a show or abandon a friend on the all-night bender. That is not what that is. It's the fear. The trigger is you think you're a bad friend or you think you're a bad being who doesn't finish books.
Right.
I'm a bad person who doesn't empty their plate, right? That's the weird thing. Like my father has that taught to him, like, oh, food is scarce. You don't want to waste food. So if you don't finish everything on your plate, you're bad.
I was also supposed to finish the plate. And it's like, now serving sizes today, that's probably not the best idea.
No. But, we just keep on expanding our stomach more and more and more.
Yeah, expanding a dinner plate in where you grew up in Ukraine is like the size of a salad plate here.
Yeah.
Because we have our plate set came with the big plates that are probably 12 inches and the small plates that are maybe 8.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And how many times have we had our 12-inch plate just overflowing with food?
Well, culturally, I think that's a big difference between like United States and, let's say, both Eastern and then like Western European cultures, is the size of their dinner plate is vastly different. Like that's one of the reasons why there's so much overconsumption. It's just change the size of your plate. And half of the time that's the key, because, you will take your time to eat it. You will eat it slowly. And then chances are you will be filled up with that small amount. Now, that is not saying you cannot go and get your seconds.
Right. But then you have to deliberately go and get seconds, and at least makes you pause.
I mean, makes you pause, but then chances are, it will just like adjust your thinking of what consumption of food is like.
Yeah. Adding in something that makes you deliberately go get more.
Yeah.
You might, and that's fine, but you don't have to. You can get a little more. You can get whatever.
Yeah. In Ukraine, I remember for dinners, a lot of the times, like most of the time, there would be a first course, which was a soup, right? And, like borscht or soup or whatever. And that is it with bread, obviously, but not poisonous bread like we have in the United States, actually, like, good quality bread. And so, usually a lot of the time is by the time you have not a huge bowl, it's not not the bowl that you and I have, actually like a small bowl of soup. But, by the time you have that and a little bit of bread, come your meal where that is the smaller plate or wherever the meal is, you're balanced out and you filled up. And, consuming liquids just by default does not have you gain as much weight. And of course, unless they're full of heavy cream and butter. But right, you just get filled up on a different level.
Yeah.
And so your generalized consumption is just balanced. Versus the United States, we usually don't do that.
Right. Here it's like, oh, here's your mac and cheese. And it's that mac and cheese is a full meal's worth of mac and cheese.
Yep, calorie wise, yeah.
Calorized, yeah.
Just because we don't
And
even
here's
watch.
another full meal's worth of mashed potatoes and gravy. And here's another full meal's worth of, it's easy to pick on like Thanksgiving foods because it's like, it's just literally overflowing. And it's the plate's just more, the table just got more of it.
Yeah, I don't know why there's so much overconsumption over Thanksgiving. I mean, we don't do it anymore. I mean, in a sense, we do it.
Yeah.
There's some that I guess maybe there's a little bit of like nostalgic comfort food.
Yeah, I mean, it's like
craving,
oh, it's a
like a
celebration,
seasonal
it's a
change.
holiday, it's a
Yeah.
it's we can justify it on this one
Yeah.
day and the next following week with all the leftovers.
Yeah. Yeah, but right, so discernment into the decisions of resonance, I think, is where you drop off your sovereignty. And so when you declare your sovereignty and then enough to where you're then in resonance, your resonance just becomes higher. Like your frequency, baseline frequency of self becomes a lot higher. And then I guess maybe like for this half, I wanted to talk about what that higher propagating in looks like. Do you know what I mean? Instead of us just talking about like what down here feels like, actually, if you're higher, what is reality? If the reality is not full of stories, then what is it?
To me, it's gonna be hard to describe this with words we haven't already used. It's very calm and peaceful, and it doesn't feel like there's a lot of charge or history or story attached to it.
Yeah, no, but I guess that's what I'm saying. If there's not a story, history attached to it, then what is it? What does it have potential of being? I guess that's really kind of what I
mean,
want
it
to
feels
talk
like
about.
it is just being, which, I'm not sure if that's a helpful description to most people.
Yeah, so okay, maybe I'll go into the descriptive mode most. So if we are coming in with our energy without stories, right, which is what this flow is. So if you're in your lighted being and you're able to access that realm and you just are, all the little preconceived notions do not exist or belong. You
Right.
cannot by default incorporate your subconscious programming into functionality from here of self, right? If you're in that state of being where there is no story means there's no collapsed outcomes. There's no predetermined scenarios. There's no place you can dive into where the outcome is like, oh yeah, I've seen this story before. I know how this ends. That doesn't even make sense.
Everything's still in the infinite probability field.
Yeah. So from the quantum mechanics standpoint, if you want to interpret it that way, you are not collapsing your outcomes based on predetermined outcomes of the stories that you have experienced in the past.
Right, because everybody expects the future to be basically like the past.
Yes. And if you're down here, functioning here, and trying to bring your frequency up, that is what it will look like. But once you're able to raise your frequency and realize that there's a way for you to go, oh, wait, I'm just going to go up high and be there, period, then you go, oh, wait, I'm not bringing in definitions. I'm not bringing in collapse scenarios. I'm just being. And the more time you spend in that being, what you will notice is reality kind of opens up to a new perspective. Like your way of being, one, simply flows. Things will just kind of happen. Usually, I say usually, but almost guaranteed from the best possible outcome of your higher being. Even though at the time you might not realize it, everything will lead you naturally to the highest potential of yourself, which basically makes for an incredible life, right? And things will just feel easy and flowy and peaceful. And I will use the word magical.
Right. I mean, that's where proper manifestation happens.
Well, yeah, but you're not even manifesting. Like manifestation in the old ways of being is almost like you're trying to make something happen.
Right.
Things just happen.
Yeah.
Which is hard, right? For those who are control freaks like me, who've been trying to control because they're afraid of the unknown, of, unsafety. It is hard to go, well, what do you mean? You don't know, but things just are. And in that place, with me, I can just know that things will be as are. And thus the are is in the best interest of me, right? By default, because there's no story, the story is being written by your higher intuitive knowing, or by your higher self, or by your enlightened being, or your light being, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
But it's propagating a story that is of your highest good without any action necessary. Things will just appear and come. And I know that's weird, but that has happened to many people before, to where you already know how that is.
Right.
But description here I want to give is that is when you were in that state of being, in that surrender, where you are not propagating a predetermined outcome of collapse, but you're simply open to being without a story. And so that's how flow happens. That's how lighted being functions.
Yeah. When you say flow, and that's, even the same as like when you're the state of flow, like the actual psychological state of flow by I can't pronounce his name, like Chiziminski or something. Like when you're doing some work and you just like completely lose yourself into it, and it's super productive, and time kind of disappears, and like all of a sudden, it's 3 hours later and you've gotten so much done, but it feels like it was 10 minutes. I think there's a connection there, because that's not happening from the down here level. That's happening from a higher. It's almost as if your higher self is doing the work through your meat sack body, but
Yeah.
you're not. Yeah, obviously you're thinking about it, because I've been there doing programming work. That's thinky work, but it's not. It's weird. It's like it's a weird state. It's really nice. Get a
Yeah.
lot done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I channel, I kind of write that.
I think that would
It's
be
in
a similar state.
It's very similar, because I'm just allowing. No, in that case,
Yeah, it comes.
I'm not
Yeah,
actually even thinking.
It almost comes through you in that state.
Yeah. I'm not thinking, but I'm surrendering into just this greater knowing. And I'm understanding that the greater knowing has a purpose and has a way of being and bringing forth something that needs to be here in this space.
Mm-hmm.
That would be of the light source, or of the light being, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I can just say it doesn't feel like me, because it's not even the way I think in the 3-dimensional way, and I'm surprised by what I put down.
Yeah, that's the thing. In it, it's like I've like solved problems that, like, if I had to stop and think and solve them, it would have taken a lot longer, and it may not have come up with as good a solution.
Yeah.
I've gotten into it when I'm doing video editing before, and it's like, oh my gosh, it just everything just comes together. Things just come together in a way that like it wouldn't have happened if it was just a brain function.
Yeah, you're kind of well, from that standpoint of lighted being, your
Yeah.
state of enlightened self, where you're not collapsing the probability, to some extent, you are in possession of all knowing. Period. All knowledge. You're actually in possession and knowledge of the best approach and best solution to every single scenario in the, let's say, interpreted 3-dimensional form. And so you actually don't have to think about it, because if you are just tuning in and you're allowing the flow to happen, your intuition will just carry you.
Yeah.
in the best outcome.
Yeah.
Because the best outcome is already exist in all form state of being.
Yeah. Saying that it's like you're not trying makes it sound weird, but that's really kind of close to it. You're not trying. You're doing successfully and quickly, and it's fun. But the trying is like almost absent from it. You're just doing.
Yeah.
Maybe you're not even doing, you're just being.
You're being, yeah. In the last month or so, when I have been doing things and like the way if I don't have plans for my day and the way my day flows, I just kind of intuitively do what I feel like doing. And sometimes it's work, and sometimes it's reading, and sometimes it's cleaning, and sometimes it's cooking, and sometimes it's, I don't know, just staring out into the sky, whatever. When you just surrender into that flow, I've noticed there's so much energy, there's so much potential energy, and even like physical energy that you have, that there are so many things that get done in the best way possible, I hope, that they're effortless. Like things get done and there's a lot of it, but they're all effortless. And so at the end of the day, you don't go, oh my gosh, like, oh, I still have this and this and this and this to do, because you never even thought about what is it that you did. There's not like that that analog processing that happens, on the bullet pointed checklist whenever you design it with the scarcity of like, oh, I have to do all these things. Like, oh, I'm going to make a list and I have to do all these things. If it comes from that space, it's almost like you can guarantee if they are going to get done, they're not going to be done for the right reason,
right
at the right time.
I used to make lists because I've got to get these things done. And now I make lists because I don't want to have to remember the things. I'm really good at coming up with ideas, but I'm maybe not as great at remembering all these things. So if I make a list, okay, I won't forget it. It sounds like it's the same thing, but there's a subtle difference there.
The energy behind the doing is not there for me. Like I'm doing out of the flow of being, as opposed to doing for the reason of doing, right? And so thus, the outcome is irrelevant. You're doing it for the experience of the doing, but it doesn't feel like standardized human definition of doing.
Yeah, and even the things that are, ostensibly unenjoyable work, cleaning the toilets, nobody wants to do that. But, it kind of just goes by.
Oh, it just flows.
Yeah.
I mean, cleaning the toilet is recognizing sacredness of all space to some extent, right? No, but the way I see cleaning is the cleaning is, you're not only wiping off dust, you cleanse. There's an intention. I hope that's what you do. Is whenever you clean, there's this intention of sanctifying or purifying space.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that's the difference between cleaning and then having an energetically balanced house. Is ideally through the process of cleaning, you're not angry, and you're doing it by bringing the flow.
Yeah. No, I used to angry clean, and nobody wins on that. In the end, yes, I guess it gets clean, but it sucks to do it, and it doesn't bring anything great into the house.
Well, yeah, no, but the reason why a house feels like home is not because, well, to some people, because it's full of dense energy of anger and resentment, and then thus that feels like home because your body's in resonance with it.
You're so used to it,
right? But because your body's in resonance with it, thus that's what you propagate, and then therefore when you come in, oh look, it feels like home because home is resentment and anger, right? But if your goal is to raise the frequency, right, to release the stuck energy, to release the density, and be able to function out of a higher state of being, then the home needs to start reflecting places where you want to be to begin with, right? To begin with, you need to actively insert the cleansing processes in. right? Like, okay, what this cleansing has to have my intention forward.
Mhm.
If there's a space I need to set within myself that I'm not in right now and every day, let me set this space into that resonance. So then when I come into my home, is actually cleaning out the density within me that I might be struggling to clean out, right? And the home almost like promotes that cleansing, promotes the dedensification. As opposed to a lot of the times, what happens is the opposite. Our home is so dense with our bullshit that we've never cleansed out that you come into your home and it's actually continued to suck you in,
Yeah.
which is completely counterproductive if your goal is to achieve peace of mind
Right.
or just just serenity.
No, I've lived there before.
Yeah, and I will say it's difficult to do. Like sometimes if you live in unrecognition of your own personal bullshit and you're just walking around vibrating clusterfuck around you, it's difficult for other people to be in that space, right? And not get sucked in unless you
Yeah.
establish sovereignty.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, that's one way you can start dealing with things. Like if your home is full of people who are not doing the work, just start establishing personal boundaries of sovereignty so that somebody else is not doing, um, and then sinking in.
Won't drag you down.
Yeah, I won't drag it. Yeah. No, but so just to kind of reinforce, once you are able to hit that threshold where the density is no longer dragging you down and you're up higher, from the up higher in that peaceful state of being, you can actually then propel yourself if we're using a scale here, on with David Hawkins, he has that scale. But he does say like once you reach this frequency, after that it's just all up.
Yeah.
But all up in the sense that you can actually flip. He doesn't say this, but you actually flip your perspective after a certain frequency.
It's interesting. That is like the bottom half, you almost have to like climb out of to a degree, and the other half you're almost pulled up.
You pulled up, but you actually have a complete flip perspective
Right.
of everything below.
Yeah. So
Does that make
even when
sense?
you're, a little bit above that point, you can see things from the higher point. You may not always be there. You may not.
Yeah, but you can see the difference.
You can, yeah, and you can understand. Oh well, I know what down there is like. That sucked. I know where I am now. That's a whole lot better. And I know where, maybe I want to be, but I can perceive the world from that. I can put myself there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what I want to say is, when people say, "Oh, start placing yourself in the place where you want to be,"
Mhm.
that only works if you have done the work down here to release this density.
Right. When I have been down there, when I've been depressed and upset and everything, it's like you can't even.
Yeah.
A, you can't get out of it, and B, you can't even imagine what it's like to be out of it. It's like, yeah, I remember a time before, and I could, maybe try to project what it would be like without it, but it doesn't work.
Yeah. You have to release the density here to begin with.
Yeah.
To even climb out of the shithole, right? Like based on your analogy. Once you climb out of the shithole, then your frequency starts to go up. You start to ascend. And at a certain point of ascension, what happens is you actually flip the perspective completely. And then you are in a separate state of being that is the beingness. And then thus after that, basically what happens is you're just propagating. You're not going back down. That is not what I'm saying. You're not going back down on the scale. You're just overlooking your entire existence from this one place of being, from this locked energy. That is your essence. By say locked, like you're just, it's unaltered. You're unaltered. You're not bouncing down. You're just kind of there. And then thus perspective of everything down, the story completely changes because there is no story. And you open up, this is what I want to say, but maybe will be too much for this particular episode, but you open up to multidimensionality that is outside of the three-dimensional scope.
Yeah.
And then uncollapsed potential it takes on a whole other meaning. Like what you see from that space and what you're able to interact with from that space is vast and is big, and you realize a lot of things. There's just like a lot of openness that comes out of that. And maybe that's an episode that we'll take on at some point later. But yeah, there's just a whole world of being that
Right.
is magical,
It-
that
it-
is around you, that you get to see.
It really expands your horizons.
Yeah, but into multidimensionality.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
what I want to say, which is like, to me, that's super exciting. And it's so exhilarating just to like see the world around you that you have never seen before. So, yeah. Good.
That's good.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening.